Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're recording. So, welcome in, everybody. The question today is, what makes a good actor? And would you like to begin introducing yourselves?
Yeah. Hi, I am Chris. I am a voice actor. I started voice acting when I was a few years ago, so I'm still rather new to it, but I'm trying my best. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm a level 4 film and TV student, undergraduate. That's basically it.
Mm. Uh, hey, I'm Nicky, and I'm. Oh shit! I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. If you
Uh,
want to leave it at just Nicky, that's fine.
yeah, I'm Nicky, and I'm I'm kind of a voice actor. I tried out for auditions, but I didn't get them. But I'm still trying.
That's all we can do. Osman.
Hi, I'm Osman or Ozzy, and I'm currently a second year undergraduate at UAB, University of Birmingham, doing drama and English lit.
Fantastic. So, to introduce the question, I'm probably going to edit this out because I just did not find my notes in time. Where the hell is it? Okay, so obviously the question, what is a good actor, is very broad, and it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. So if we're going to narrow it down immediately to sort of a more a specific question, I suppose. Now, this is that the opinion that I heard, or what was told to me, was that somebody like Dwayne Johnson. We all know who Dwayne Johnson is, don't we? The Rock.
Yeah.
We all know
Yeah.
who Dwayne Johnson is. So somebody said to me that Dwayne Johnson wasn't, and people like him, aren't necessarily good actors because they can only really play the same kind of character in everything they do. Which, as you know, Dwayne Johnson tends to play very similar characters in all of his movies and all of his work, at least recently. Now, of course, you could disagree with that, whatever, but that's sort of the idea. So the question, I suppose, is, does that make Dwayne Johnson a lesser actor than other actors, or is that a good thing that he can play the same character in every role he does? Does it take it away? Anyone who've got any thoughts on that?
Well, if I go first, I think yes and no. No, let's go with no. If he's believable in the role that he's playing, then I think he's done his job. If he's entertaining, and you can believe the situation he's in and the emotions that he's reacting with. Yeah, he's not very diverse in the sense of the characters he can play, but if you can believe the person he's portraying, even though it's the same one again and again and again, then I think he's doing a good job. That's what I've got to say. Yes.
All right. So you think that well, does anyone else have anything to say on that first of all?
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with that point. I wouldn't necessarily say if you're not a diverse actor, you're not a good actor. It just means that you may occasionally be typecast for certain roles. Now, with someone like Dwayne Johnson, a lot of that may be his appearance, and then I'd say for certain other actors or actresses that may also be a thing. So, like if you know of Melissa McCarthy, a lot of the time she would be the funny sidekick or something, usually with jokes at the expense of her weight. She has since recently diversified her roles a little bit, but it's also interesting that she's also lost weight. So a big thing in this industry is about appearance. So I think it's interesting if, being a good actor is also restricted by your appearance in some respects as well. For all we know, maybe Dwayne Johnson could be the next Damien Day-Lewis, but because of his size, he's always typecast as one thing. We don't know. We will never know, I guess. But
Burden he
yeah.
carries.
My mic was muted. Sorry. This typecasting, Does this does this happen to most actors? Does it happen to a lot of voice actors? Is that a big? Is it a problem? Does this affect a lot of different actors? Do you think, or do you think actually, and then the actors that aren't typecast tend to be the good actors, or do we disagree with that?
Hmm.
I can edit out all these silences, by the way, so take your time to think seriously.
Okay. Sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I've kind of spaced out in the middle.
It wasn't very clear. So this typecasting idea, the idea of certain actors or voices or whatever being given the same roles over and over again, like Dwayne Johnson, like Melissa McCarthy, does that mean that people who aren't typecast are considered the better actors, or is that just bad luck? Is that just directors and producers just getting involved where they shouldn't be? I don't know. What is this a problem, typecasting in this industry?
It really depends on the thing that you define as an inconvenience. I mean, it's probably an inconvenience for the actor himself or herself, because if you're like only like recognized for a single role or a single like act, a single way of acting, then yeah, that's a great an extreme inconvenience, because well, you can only act in those specific roles. So yeah, it is kind of a problem, but in a way it's not, because yes, you're only limited to that one role, but you're also exclusive to that one. I mean, you're also, a lot of people are gonna refer you, are gonna um take you for that role. They choose a guy who can specialize in one thing and be very good at it, instead of a guy who can do a lot of things but is like mediocre at it. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
That's a very interesting point. Osman, as an actor, and Chris as well as a voice actor, and Nicky, would you be annoyed if you were typecast all the time, or if you found yourself getting typecast, or do you think actually you'd be quite relieved? As Chris was saying, it's quite a good thing. Like you're almost guaranteed that kind of role whenever it comes up.
Oh, I'd be totally like, it depends on the role actually. If I really enjoy the role, and this is very important, if I enjoy the role, I'd be more than happy to be typecasted. But if I don't, then if I can't enjoy what I love to do, then it's gonna be a real problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
the
also
same
say,
goes. Oh, sorry.
sorry.
No,
I'd also say that it also comes into it. Sometimes there's a line between being typecast for a role and someone, genuinely having a speciality in something. So, like, speaking from personal experience, a lot of the roles I've done have been more of a comedic type of role, and there's been some variation within that. Um, I wouldn't say that necessarily that's why that I've always been typecast for that. I'd say I'm stronger with comedy rather than straight acting. So I think it does sort of depend on the role and the person and what they kind of prefer, because I do know some people who are more than happy to perform more or less the same role over time, because I think, as you said, Will, you're always sort of guaranteed that role, so there is some agency within that as well, I believe.
And Nicky, what were you going to say?
Yeah, what Chris said basically sums up what I was going to say. If I'm always guaranteed that role, and if it's a good role, I'll be fine always getting that role. But if it's something that I
Yeah, no, of course, and Ethan, from somebody who is mainly behind the camera, if you had to cast somebody in a role, would you prefer them to be, would you prefer somebody who's really good at that one specific role, or would you sort of branch out and look for somebody who's more general as an actor? What would you look for?
Well, speaking from my lack of experience so far.
Oh no, hey,
um,
you know,
but
moving forward.
I don't know. I think you'd leave it open. You'd leave it open to the audition, and you'd. I'd see, but if they brought their own ideas to it, I'd see what they have first to bring to the script, see what their take is on it, and then from there on you can tweak it and see if they can fit into your original idea, or if they've then inspired you to change the original idea. But typecast, I don't think if it's a strength, I don't think it's a particularly bad thing unless it comes down to discrimination. And again, if you're trying to get out of that typecast and you want to try and experiment with another form, um, yeah,
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So bringing it back to the grander question, then I suppose we probably should have started with this really, but it doesn't matter. So to each of us individually, we'll start with Chris. What is to you a good actor? And I'm sure that this will be very similar for all of us, but we'll just take it in turns. We'll go one by one. What is it? So again, Chris, starting with you. What is a good actor to you more generally?
A good actor. That's it's a pretty hard question because I, to me, a good actor is someone who can do a very good job at the thing the at the thing they were casted for, or rather,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, at the thing they were casted for. Like, if they're if they do their job right, and if they do it very well, it doesn't matter what kind of job they do. If they're
Interesting.
if they can do their job, they're a good actor. They don't need to enjoy it. They don't need to like it, because that's a whole nother topic, whether you like enjoy it or not. But to be a good actor, you have to be good at your job. A lot of people are good at their job and they don't enjoy it.
Yes, but you are right. That is a whole other question. We could get into that later. I mean,
Yeah.
now for you, Ethan, do you agree? What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. If it's stage acting or I guess comedy, as long as if they're entertaining, I, I don't see what the problem is. I guess it's all very subjective, isn't it? So for me, it's if I can believe who they're portraying or the situation they're reacting to, and the range of them. Yeah, if they can hit a range of emotions, whether they're hitting a range of emotions as themselves, playing themselves, or hitting a range of emotions as a complete different person to who they are off screen or off stage, then I think if they can jump into someone else's shoes and not be them for 10 minutes, they've done their job.
That's pretty much got the nail on the head there. Nicky, do you have anything to add to that, or Osman, anything at all you want to add to or change to that?
What Chris and Ethan said pretty much is what makes a great voice actor. Yeah. I have nothing else to say.
No, sure, of course.
Took all the words from my mouth.
Osman, I'm sure you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, most of the points I would agree with what the guys have said. I just think to be a good actor is someone who always delivers. There is an element of consistency there, and they always have an impact on an audience, be it in theatre, radio, screen, whatever, they will have some sort of impact, whether they'll make you laugh, they'll make you cry, they'll make you think about something that happened 10 years ago. They'll have some form of impact on you, which I think is quite important. But no, I agree with all the other guys.
Well, so you made an interesting point there about being consistent. So this brings me back to a point I heard recently where, if and again, if you feel like you disagree with this, please say. But Bryan Cranston is a good example of this, in my opinion. Do we all know who Bryan Cranston is? We might not. But if you, it doesn't matter if you do or don't really. But Bryan Cranston was one of the lead actors in a television show called Breaking Bad, and he won many awards for it. He was absolutely phenomenal in Breaking Bad. But most people I've spoken to, at least, have agreed that in every other thing Bryan Cranston has done since or before Breaking Bad, his performances haven't been that good. And so some people think that his performance in Breaking Bad, though he was, congratulated for it and given lots of awards, was just a fluke. It was just a luck. Does that mean Bryan Cranston isn't a good actor then, if he can't be consistent with his performance?
Well, you said performance. I think there are multiple different performances,
Right.
and so he's consistent in that role that he played in Breaking Bad. I to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of his other
No, that's fine.
other things, but if you're turning up, you're being professional, and you can do the same thing or a variation of it, and you're hitting the scripts or close to the edit scripts or whatever you're doing. I think you're doing a good job. I think a lot of when it comes to films and TV, a lot of elements can portray an actor differently. So you've got the editor, you've got the director has a huge role in the performance of the actor as well. So if he's got no inspirational guidance, I think his skills can only go so far.
That's a brilliant point about other members of the crew. Did anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the people around you, the people you work with, are extremely important in your performance.
Right.
Because they're the ones who give you what you need, the tools in order to do what you do. Yeah, like he said, your skills can only bring you so far. You always need help with stuff, and I can't really say. I can't really say if his other performances were is he to blame for his other performances being bad, or is,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure about that. That's
But-
interesting.
But yeah,
Other people. It is a group. It's a group project, isn't it? Film and television and acting is a group project. Even in theatre, Osman, for you, do you find that you work better with better co-workers, or do you feel like you can do a lot of it on your own, or what do you think to that?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about points. I think Ethan raised a good point about if you're on TV or film, there are sort of other tools at play which can maybe prevent you being consistent, whether that's a director's vision agreeing with you, or if there's special effects going on, depending on what type of film it is. So I think with theatre, there may possibly be the chance to be more consistent, but it does depend on that director's vision and also who you work with. I think the cast that you have, I mean, for me, it's more theatre because I haven't done any film or TV, but I would imagine it'd be similar. But the cast you have is crucial because it all depends on, how you bounce off one another. And if you have a good cast, then they will each give everyone something more to run off of. So that would enable your performance to be heightened and even stronger and have more of that impact that I was talking about earlier. So I do think there is a scope there to be more consistent in the theatre, but it does also depend on the cast and also the director.
So that must put a lot more pressure on Nicky and Chris, on you guys, right? Because when you're voice acting, I can't imagine there's there's many other people around you. You're just on your own, maybe in a room or a studio somewhere, I don't know, or just maybe in your own bedroom, just recording into a mic. So do you feel like the pressure is greater for other kinds of acting than it is for, you know, people like Osman, people in theatre, people in television?
Yeah. When you're like alone in your room, doing your stuff, it's kind of easier, in my opinion,
Oh, really?
because
Interesting.
yeah, because well, if you have me personally, I have have fear of crowds, even like little crowds, but I'm starting to fix that. Yeah, it's harder to be at first, at least. It's harder to do what you need to do if other people are watching.
Of course, yeah,
But
that makes
if
sense.
you, yeah, but if you get to the point where other people are starting to help you, their reactions, their opinions, their presence, then you're an even better voice actor in that way, in that sense.
No, of course, yeah. And so, Osman, when you're on the sorry, before Osman, Nicky, did you have anything to add to that you wanted to add?
Yeah. When I'm recording my lines for projects I do, I'm usually doing it in a room, but there's always pressure in case of, oh, what if I mess up, or what if I do this wrong, or how others will criticize. There's always going to be pressure if you do any kind of these roles, and it's something we have to overcome. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
No, that's fine. So, and Osman, for you, when you're on stage, I assume you might have had to give a monologue once or twice in your career, should I say? I don't know. But do you find that greater pressure being on your own, or do you, you know, with Chris, do you find it sort of easier to be on your own than surrounded by all your co-stars and people working with you?
What I would say for that is, I think personally, I do find monologues more challenging than just sort of normal sort of interaction during a play or whatever on stage, because I do feed off a lot of my fellow cast.
Of
So
course, yeah.
monologue is a greater challenge. So it's a greater challenge, but then you just have to approach it slightly differently. So when I'm given monologues, I spend a lot of time picking apart every line and every thought that I think my character has, and I still sort of use the cast and the different characters in my head, because I do sort of think what's brought him or them to that moment where he is reeling off this thought or emotion. So it is a greater challenge. You just have to approach it differently. But just on a slightly different note, because I think Chris highlighted it there. I think the question of what makes a good actor, I do think there is variations of whether that's an actor who is known for stage or screen or voice
Right.
work, because I
Sure.
think you can have an actor who's great in the theatre because they're used to that audience interaction, but if you put them, just in the room with a microphone and give them just their own voice, that's a whole other, speciality to try and do. So I do also think it depends on the type of acting that you're doing.
Oh, that's a really good point. And on that, you know, so Ethan, when you were recently, you know, calling out for auditions, did you have any specialty in mind? Did you say, okay, only people who have acted in with this background, or did you not care whether they'd come from a voice acting background or whatever kind of background? You know, like Osman was saying, it might be more difficult for somebody who just does voice acting or just does theatre to suddenly go in front of a camera. I remember Timothy Leandro saying stuff like that once. So what do you was there any consideration there for that?
Well, in the moment we were taking who we could get. To be honest,
Yeah.
we didn't. No, we're open to anyone coming in.
Of course,
at all.
yeah.
We didn't even have gender or age assignments for any of the characters that you helped write for us. So we literally got them in. No, I think we just watched I just watched their take on it, and then they brought some ideas to the script. But
Right. So do you think it's important that and you did mention this before, and again anybody else can input on this. Do you think it's important that actors should be given an opportunity, whether it's voice lines or whether it's a theatre scripts or whatever, to work on the script themselves and to add their own opinions and thoughts to the script, or should an actor just stick to what they've been given and perform what they have been given well? You know, what do you think? What do you think of that?
I think it's you should be open to see what they brought, because if you never know, they might have a better idea than so, so you might as well take the opportunity to have a look at it. If it's pants, tell them it's pantses. But I think it's worth listening to them in the first place.
Right.
The actors that I auditioned hadn't done any camera work before. It's always been theatre for them, and they adapted to it great. But no, I think as long as you're giving them some sort of direction, I don't think it's you can fine tune it. If you take what they're bringing to the table, if you like some of it, you keep some of it. If you don't like some of it, you cut it out. You fine tune it to your needs and wants of the script, and what sort of performance you're looking for. I assume that's my opinion.
No, yeah, that's really interesting. Anybody else got anything to add to that? You know, if you're Chris or Nicky, if you're given voice lines, do you try to add your own sort of take on it, or do you just do what you've been given? And you know, Osman the same on the stage. You know.
Yeah, it's extremely important, especially like me personally, because even for like, especially for the little things like, hey, can we like change this because it's a bit hard to read and it's I think it's easier to understand if we change it like that, or like but like, or like, hey, I think that doesn't make sense, or like those little things, like if you like um restrict your actors just to the things you've given them, they're gonna be extremely be neutered, uh,
Mm.
for lack of a better term, because the reason why most, at least I act, is because I want to like convey the character the way I want to convey them, and
Interesting.
I can't do that if I'm put down like that. Yeah.
No, that's Nicky or Osman.
Personally, I don't. When I'm given lines and I see something that I think, oh, this could be different, but I don't tell them my opinion because they wrote the lines and they know what's best and how things should be delivered or what should be said for certain parts. So I just follow what they give me. Just do it.
Osman, do you have anything to say? Do you agree with that?
Well, personally, I'm always looking for ways to not change what's there on the script, because at the end of the day, you are, you know, the director and the writer, and sometimes if it's someone who's written and directed the same thing, then they have a very clear vision in their head of what you should be doing.
Yeah, like you said,
Um,
yeah.
but I'm always looking at ways to add to what's already been given to me, and I always look for what I call my toothbrush moment when I'm
Right.
doing a play.
Right.
I.e., after you've spent some time with the production and it gets to about a week before the show or something, I go back to the original character work that I would have done with the director for the character and think, right, is there anything I could add to this character in terms of a delivery of a line, or is it something physical, or just a thought for my character for a particular scene? Something just to lift it, but that only comes having worked with the director or writer and understanding how they would like the character to be, to me actually understanding the character themselves and how they could and should be performed on stage. So it's a balance between the both.
And Chris and Nicky, do you find it harder then to communicate and work with the people who are giving you these lines? because it's so so different, because you're working from your room and they might be a million miles away, barely on their computer. So like Nicky, you said that you just do what you've been given. If you could communicate with them, would you, that kind of thing? I don't know, is it harder?
Yeah, if I it's difficult for me to communicate to those who for the voice the line the directors, because I'm not good with talking to people.
Right.
I'm what I call a social outcast.
Oh god. Right, yeah. So you feel like it's you think it's like
Oh, Will.
yeah, oh Will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's true. But so do you think it's more a confidence thing then than anything else? Do you think if you had the confidence to confront the director about a particular line, you would?
Yeah, if I had the confidence, I would, but I don't. I just do what I'm told.
Well, at least you're being
Told.
honest. Chris,
Yep.
what do you think to that?
Yeah, I think I'll start with confidence. I think confidence is it's a very important thing for an actor. Like, you're an actor. You have to be confident. You have to like show emotion and show it good. And if you can't do that, you're gonna have an extremely difficult time being an actor, or if you want to be an actor, at least. Like, yeah. And the thing about um the other thing, the communication. Yeah, communication is extremely important, even if the communication is like through text or like just through call. You have to communicate with your boss, quote unquote, if you want um to get what he wants out of your performance. And no matter how far they are, you can't just not communicate with them, because you have to like know what they want, and you have to know what you can and can't do, and you have to know what it is um exactly what they're trying to get out of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
we all agree that it's the mark of a good actor that whether or not they want to change the line or not, that they should at least be willing to communicate with people. And of course, but of course, with Nicky, we don't mean to be shunning you here. That's not what we're doing. But that the idea of confidence, is that we agree in agreement that comes through just experience. Just Osman, I'm sure you were nervous the first time you got on the stage. Are you still nervous? And Ethan, do you see actors just with the production you did, were they nervous at first as well, and they just got better over time?
Yeah, they were. To be honest, I think I was more nervous than the actors that I was auditioning.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
So why was that? That's interesting. Why was that?
Well, one, I guess it's the project that you're trying to create. You've got in the back of your head, like, am I going to find the right person? Can I? You need to, because you need to allow the actors to open up. You need to allow them to be confident with you as the director as well. So they look up to you for leadership of the situation as you're trying to control this project and create your vision. Or your producer's vision. It depends on what contract you're running under. But then, you have to. I think you have to get to know them. You have to an extent, professionally anyway. You need to, because they need to be comfortable to open up. They're essentially, metaphorically, going out there naked in front of it. They're exposing and being vulnerable to themselves in front of people. So that's an audience or a crew. They need to be confident enough to express themselves. So I think you've got to. So, what's the lack of a better word? Yeah, just put them at ease. So I don't know.
And speaking of, they have to allow the people in charge, so to speak, to fulfill this vision of theirs. You know, Osman, Nicky, Chris, I don't know. Have you ever come across people actors that have tried to sort of steal the show, but in a bad way, or people who get very annoyed if the director says, "Hey, do this," and then they actually, they don't want to do that because that's, they should be allowed to be completely free, that kind of thing. What do you think? Do you find most actors are actually quite good at listening to the lines and listening to the directors?
Well, I would say in this industry, you can't avoid having a clash of egos.
Right.
Whether that's just people having different styles or personalities clashing. I think you do sometimes get clashes between actor and director um, due to these different styles and the visions that they have for the character or the performance. But it's okay to have it as a conversation. What you don't want is when it gets more disruptive to the wider cast and crew. I mean, I've been very lucky the past couple of productions that I've worked on. Everyone's really got on, and if there have been times where we've had to, question the director or something about the decision, they're very happy to have that conversation. So I think it's allowing that conversation to happen, but in a not letting your ego get too carried away.
My mic disconnected again. I'm sorry. So, would you say that it's the mark of a good actor to Okay, let me rephrase that. So, have you? Well, first of all, have you ever seen that clash of egos escalate, or you said you were very fortunate recently, but have you ever been witness to that before?
I've never been witness to a massive argument between a director or an actor, but then I have worked on certain projects where all the rest of the cast and crew know that people aren't getting along, and conversations happen in smaller groups and behind people's backs to be like, oh, I really don't like what they're making me do for this character, or I really don't like what she's done with my character and stuff like that. But I've never witnessed a massive argument, thankfully.
No, thankfully not. No.
Yes, although it could happen.
Could happen. Could happen. But you think it's the mark of the good actor to sit down and have that as a conversation with the people?
Yeah, I think a good actor would know that at the end of the day, we spoke about a bit before about, do you change lines, do you add stuff, which you can do, and I would advocate actors to do to an extent, but you do have to know your place. At the end of the day, it's the director's entire production, and if you have a crazy idea in your head that in your head sounds perfect but it might disrupt the rest of the performance, then you need to know to take that step back.
And again, speaking of communication, do you, Nicky and Chris, do you find it, because it's harder to communicate with these people, do you find that there's more tension there between the two of you because you can't sit down face to face and have a conversation with another human, or do you actually find that people are, even over the internet, still quite willing to help and they're quite cooperative?
Yeah. See, this is where the skill of social skills and communication skills come into play, because if you can't talk to people the way you should talk to them, or the way the way you should talk to them, you're gonna have a bad time, because if you can't convey what you want to convey, or if you can't understand if you can't bounce off each other, then nothing's gonna move, or at least nothing's gonna move well. So it's extremely important to have good communication skills.
Of course, yeah, and Ethan, I suppose.
And
sorry, carry on. Chris, carry on. Did you have more to say?
Yeah, no, sorry.
No, that's right. So, Ethan, you would say it's well, I suppose that it's important as well that not only are the actors open with people like you, but you're also open with the actors. Yeah, it's not just they should approach you, maybe you should approach them. It should be a a two-way thing.
Yeah, I think you should be. You need to be as close as possible with the actors as you can. Otherwise, you're not going to get the performance out of them that you're wanting. You need to try and you can't fine tune them. There needs to be some sort of trust.
Of course, yeah.
So it's professional trust there, and I feel it's important. You need to have those sort of deep discussions. You need to go into detail about what would happen to this character in different situations. So they've got something to play with, and you don't want to squander their imagination and their inspiration by just saying no to them all the time. You want to talk through things. Obviously, yeah, you're holding the reins at the end of the day, making the call, but there's no harm unless you have not got the time for it and they're doing it right in the middle of a scene.
Of course, yeah.
But if you're discussing it beforehand, I don't think there's any harm. Or if they come to them to decide when there's a minute and like, how about we try it this way? Would you think that's okay? Then, if you think that's in line with where you want to take it, I don't see the problem in that. But yeah, communication is really important.
It's everything.
And,
yeah. No, and it is, and sort of moving on to a sort of final point here for discussion. That just sort of came to me. So we were talking earlier about believability in a role, about being able to believe that, the mark of a good actor is that they can portray a character and you believe that is that character. Of course, we all know that it's an actor, but in the moment you can go with it and you can believe it. And there's sort of 2 points here I wanted to talk about. The first is for Osman, really, and that on stage, do you think it's harder than it is for film and television, because there's no editing, there's it's a person, people know more easily that it's not. I mean, we all know that they're all just actors, but on stage, do you find it harder to convince people that you are this other person than you think it would be for people in who can be edited and people who can be hidden behind things?
I mean, I would say it's actually easier, if
really?
anything.
Oh wow! Why is that?
On stage, I think it's because on stage you are quite limited, obviously, by what you can and can't do. So a lot of the time you are reliant on that sheer emotion, and it's taking everything right back, and it's one person or a small group of people on stage trying to make hundreds feel something, and you don't have a load of cameras to hide behind or many special effects or stuff, depending on what budget you have for your production. But I find it easier just to run off on that emotion, because not everyone watching in the audience would enjoy the high-tech effects of a film or the editing process. They won't relate to that or understand, oh, that film had really good sound editing, it really made me interested.
Yeah.
They will take away, oh, that guy really made me laugh on stage. So that's why I find it easier from personal experience to be in the theatre, to try and make the audience feel something, to be more believable. And I do have a slight issue with that word believable, because everyone's idea of what is believable and what isn't is different. So I've workshopped stuff before and I've acted in a certain way, and then the director says, well, I don't believe it. Then you think, well, I do. So what's that kind of thing? How can anyone prove whether what you're feeling inside your head, if you're doing a scene where you're meant to be really sad, and in that moment you as an actor feel really sad? And this could be for anything, it's not just the stage. I guess it could be voice work or screen as well. If you feel a certain way, if you feel believable in that moment, it's not necessary that someone watching you could find you believable. So I have a slight issue with that word, but in general I do think the theatre's easier because you can run off that raw emotion.
That's really interesting. And then again, same question to Chris and Nicky. Do you find it harder because you're just using your voice, so it's more pressure to use that voice well, and you can't use your hand gestures, you can't use facial expressions? at least not your own. Maybe you were doing it for some kind of animation, so they might be able to animate. But at least, you know, while you're there performing the lines, is that difficult for you to convey all these emotions, that believable emotions? I know Osman hates it, but you know, what do you think?
Um, I'm gonna add something to what Ozzy said, because, like, from what I've noticed, there are like uh two types of like performances, like the live action ones, which the ones Ozzy does, and the ones we do, which is the ones where we're getting edited in post. Yeah, in post. Um, what Ozzy does is he lives in the moment, and he has to do it in real time and try his best to not, like, for lack of better term, fuck up in the moment, because
Yeah.
uh yeah, and as opposed to us, we can do it quote unquote as many times as we like, as many
Of
takes
course.
as we
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, but there's no momentum. Like, we
Right.
have to like
Right.
That's a
we
really
have to
good
like
point.
yeah, we have to like bring stuff up, like, instantly. Like, when we want to like act something, like a scream, like we have to scream, we can't like feed off something like, oh, where am I supposed to get that? Like, yeah, it's like, if you want to be an actor, you have to choose first what kind of actor you want to be. You have to either like choose to be like Ozzy, or to be like us, to be like me, Nicky. And also, about the if it's like sorry, what was the last thing you
That
said
is,
again? Sorry,
is it
what?
more difficult? Is it? Do you find it harder to convey sort of believable emotions behind the behind the mic? You know.
Oh, the thing about voice acting is no one can see you. So
Yes.
you can do as many crazy stuff as you want behind the camera, behind the mic,
Yeah. Of course.
and no
Yeah.
one will
Yeah.
see you. So conveying emotions is like, you can do like a extremely crazy voice about a crazy person, and you can act as crazy as you want, and it won't matter. The only thing
Wow.
that matters is your voice.
So
Yeah.
yeah, wow. So actually, you'd think it would be harder because people can't see that, but actually, the fact that they can't see what you're doing means you
But
can
yeah,
just do whatever. Yeah, that's.
Yep.
yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. It's also harder at the same time, because the only thing that people are gonna see is your voice, are gonna hear rather. So you have to like fine tune your voice to convey as much as you possibly can, which is extremely difficult, especially for like first timers, or even like professionals. Yeah.
And Nicky, do you suppose you agree with that? I suppose.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said. He just summed it up perfectly.
I'm sure he did. So the final thing we'll discuss here before I wrap it up, because it's dragging on longer than I said it was, and that's a really good thing. I just don't want to keep people too long here. Is that, and this is a quite complicated idea, but it sort of links back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, and again with believability, and typecasting and that kind of thing. But the idea is that you want to sell a role. You want to make people, again, believe, for lack of a better word, that you are this character. And the example that came was Martin Freeman. I don't know if you know who Martin Freeman is, but he did
Yep.
John Watson in Sherlock. He was the Hobbit. But a lot of people say that when they see Martin Freeman on the big screen or whatever he's doing, they don't see his character. They don't hear his voice. They just see Martin Freeman. They don't see John Watson. They don't see the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins. You know, does that say something about his acting ability? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think it's either two things. One, he's too good at his job,
Right.
or he's too bad at his job. Like,
Right.
he
Sure.
he's too good at his job in a way that he, no matter where he is, that's the only thing you can see because he's too good. He like, yeah, hey, that's the guy who can do so much, or
Yeah.
or 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 either he's the guy who's like, hey, that's the guy who sucks.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can see.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Osman, when you're on stage, would you prefer people to see you and go, "Oh, that's Osman," or do you prefer people to see you and go, "Oh, that's whatever character you're playing"?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one because
Right.
it's very hard to, as an actor, control your reputation and what people see. So,
Right. Sure.
Martin Freeman may wish people didn't see him as Martin Freeman, but as, John Watson or whatever. What I would say is that I think, and this is something that hasn't been covered and maybe a thing for another day, but
Sure.
I think most actors do bring something of themselves to a role.
Right.
So sometimes I've been in performances and afterwards people that I know in the audience will come up to me and be like, "Oh, Ozzy, you were really good in that, but in that scene you were being yourself, weren't you? You weren't actually acting." I was like, "Well, no, I was acting. I took a personal experience and relayed it on stage in whatever way."
Right. Yeah.
So stuff like that may happen with Martin Freeman, but then what I also think is I do think this sort of goes back to typecasting again.
Yeah.
Because if you think of someone like Dwayne Johnson, who constantly plays the same role, if you then see him on the Graham Norton show or something talking about his upcoming movie, it's almost as if he's playing the character in the interview. He's always the same person. So I feel like in that scenario, you watch a film and it's like, oh, okay, Dwayne Johnson being Dwayne Johnson. Because he has been typecast so much that he is almost that role in real life as well as in the film. Whereas personally, if people constantly saw me as myself on stage, I would feel a little bit annoyed at that.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So to wrap that up then, would anyone like to sort of conclude what is a good actor? What can we sort of take away from this, if anything? Or should we just leave it blank? Just leave it for people to ponder forevermore? Or does anyone want to conclude? What do we want to do?
Yeah, I think a mark of a good voice actor is if you can do your job right, then yeah, you're good.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ethan. What about? Okay, so if we'll do Osman does theatre, and then Ethan, if you want to say something about sort of camera, TV work, and then if Nicky wants to add anything as well, we can. So Ethan, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I think again it depends on which form you're dealing with. With theatre, it's so different. So you got to or you hear you same thing over and over again. You got to move the same again and again and again. So they're both doing them both well shows the amount of endurance, but in different ways that you have to cope with as an actor, and
right.
So it shows off your showcases your ability. I think endurance. I'd say endurance and professionalism. And if at the end of the day, it's an entertainment, isn't it? Most of it is art there, but if you're entertained by someone's performance, then I think that makes them a good actor.
Excellent. And then Nicky will come to the end if you have anything to add. But Osman first, what makes a good theatre actor for you, in your opinion?
I would say to be a good theatre actor, you have to feed off both the audience and the cast that you've given. And even if one night you may have quite a bad audience who's given you nothing, make them give you something. Bring an energy onto that stage. Come onto the stage with a presence and energy that will provoke some sort of reaction to have that impact on the audience. And then I'd also say, just try and cover as many styles as you can in order to find what you're best at. If you one performance you're doing Shakespeare, and then you go to a sketch show and one of them you find, oh, I was really bad at that. Well, maybe that's not what your speciality is. I think every actor has a speciality, and allow that to come alive on stage.
Very nice. Well, that was a bloody good talk. I think that went very well. So brilliant. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Ethan, could you just stay at the end? I think I'm going to have to get you to scream down the mic for a second. But everybody else, that was excellent. I'll let keep an eye on the Discord and see if any other questions in the future take your fancy, and then you can come back on and give your opinion. But thank you all for coming on. So yeah, I'm going to end it there. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Fun.